In this video essay, I will be talking about the content, form and purpose of advertisements. There are many different forms of advertising, including realist, anti-realist and animated adverts, as well as series of adverts which can be released gradually over a long period of time. Realist adverts generally have a set narrative, which means they have a possibility of happening in real life. For example, although the Wii advert is an acted piece, the storyline is realistic enough to reflect a sample of everyday life. By giving the advert a realistic setting, the director makes the viewer, who might be sitting in a similar setting, see the product as being very accessible to them. For example, the viewer sees the characters in the advert having a good time and are led to believe they're missing a Wii because they too could have the same good time as they're having. Anti-realist adverts, even though they have a set storyline as well, tend to play more on the fictional elements and develop their narrative more. This technique is used in adverts because even though a realist approach is more identifiable, audiences tend to respond better to anti-realist because the mise-en-scène is designed to be more intriguing to the viewer. This is because everything including the cinematography, settings, colour scheme, costumes, and even the acting is made to look polished, out of the ordinary, and alluring. The Iron Brew advert, for example, has a look of a realist advert, but the acting and the cinematography is stylized in a way that makes it very much anti-realist. An animated advert can vary greatly, with many different styles of animation used, such as 2D drawn, stop motion, and computer-generated animation. Using animation in adverts often suggests that it's aimed at a younger audience, such as children or families. To some extent this is true, but not always the case. Animation can also be used to make the visuals look interesting so they stand out. The Coca-Cola advert, although it's animated, is aimed at men aged 25 to 45 because the main character in the advert is a man. This technique is used to create some sort of fantasy element which ties in with the anti-realist style. There are different ways to show and distribute adverts on television. They can be shown either as standalone adverts or a series of adverts. A series of adverts is when the same style of advert is used over a number of months or years, maybe with the same actors in various settings or with the same feel. For instance, in every Snickers advert, a character acts a certain way, then is given a Snickers bar and is brought back to normal again. Even the dialogue is the same each time. This type of repetitive advert can use humour and a good tagline, in this case, "Get some nuts," to fix itself in the viewer's brain and draw the audience in to buy the product. One of the most important factors about adverts is the types of messages that they put across to the audience, which can often be hidden messages. These messages inspire many types of emotional responses or association. An example of this would be celebrity endorsement, which the Virgin Media series of adverts use. For these, David Tennant is cast in the advert and suggests to the audience that they join Virgin Media. Virgin Media uses celebrity endorsement, in this case David Tennant, for their adverts because they want the audience to think that if a celebrity uses a product that they recognise, then if they use the product themselves, this will put them on the same level as the celebrity. They could also think that the product must be legitimate if a well-known person is using it. Characteristics of the product, such as the brand identity, can be shown just at the end of the advert. At other times, branding is used all the way through, such as when characters use it as a prop. The Cadbury adverts use the same colour scheme, light purple, all through their adverts to reinforce their brand identity. This technique is used so the brand is easily identifiable to the audience. They're also trying to create recognition and make the product seem different from its competitors. The advantage of this is getting an audience interested in the product they're promoting, or at least catch their attention. Some of the audience's responses to an advert can be passive and others can be active. For example, if there is an advert on television, the viewer might take a passive approach, e.g., taking in what's in front of them but having no real opinion on it. An active response from the viewer would be that they would be intrigued by the visuals, get interested in the product they're promoting, and then preferably buy the product. This is generally the kind of positive response the advertisers want. Other active responses from the audience are not always positive and arise debates as to how the people or the products are represented. For example, debates about body image can arise from adverts which represent females as being thin and glamorous, which could possibly make a female audience to think that that's what a person has to do to look beautiful, when in fact it's unrealistic for most women. Another example of an audience debate would be targeting at children, such as with adverts from McDonald's, Disneyland, or toy adverts that aim to hook young minds in. This causes debate not only because it is pressurizing parents, i.e. the secondary target audience, to spend money on products the children do not need, but also because the adverts can manipulate young viewers into seeing themselves in a certain way. For example, rarely will a viewer find a water gun advert that is not aimed at boys, unless it has flowers or the colour scheme of soft colours, e.g. pink or purple. Many viewers have said that such adverts give an overt, harmful message to young children because they promote stereotypical, unrealistic gender roles. A second example of an overt, harmful message would be the McDonald's adverts. With a child's meal, they can sometimes get a free toy, which tends to hook the younger audience in more and more. This sometimes happens when McDonald's is cross-promoting/sponsoring a children's film, which leads profit for them and the film. The result of this manipulative, harmful message can lead to the increase of childhood obesity. Other audience responses can be very positive participatory ones, such as fan art, fan fiction, and fan sites, all of which can be labelled as fan culture. This happens when audiences want to be more involved in something that they love, such as a film, TV show, or book. The creative responses the viewer gives is in itself cross-promotion advertising. The audience is usually classified by age and gender orientation. This information is generally gathered through rating figures, focus groups, and questionnaires. The last topic I will discuss is working to a brief in advertising. The structure of assigned briefs can be of many different types, for example, contractual, formal, or informal. A contractual brief is strictly created for a specific job and explains the duties required. The layout is clear and detailed, which allows the employee to understand what is required of them. The benefit of this kind of brief is that it's easy to understand the task and to follow a detailed brief as specified by the client. The disadvantage is if the employee happens to break the rules of the agreement, then that can affect their reputation because the contract is set in stone. An example of how a contractual brief is carried out is that the client specifies what they want to advertise and the potential employee will pitch an idea for an advert and then be responsible for carrying out the production if they are employed to make the advert. A formal brief is not always a legal document, which leads to certain advantages that an employee can use, such as the fact that if a task assigned is not completed, no legal action can be taken. A formal brief is not as detailed as a contractual brief. It only explains the basics of what the employee needs to carry out the task. Any additional information can be further discussed and questions can be answered if necessary. Both parties involved, i.e. the client and the employee, agree on the project together and they both give specific details about the goals that need to be achieved for the product. The benefit of having a formal brief is that it's open for discussion between the client and the employee. The disadvantage is the client may or may not give enough information about the advert they want to create, or change their minds midway through the product. In contrast to this, an informal brief is verbal, which means the client and the employee discuss the requirements for the advert they will be creating and agree on the project. The benefit of this brief is that the negotiations are more informal and flexible. The disadvantage is there is no documentation, which can cause a lot of misunderstandings. When taking on an assigned brief, it is very important to read the information through thoroughly so you know exactly what is required. You need not only pay attention to what points in the brief should be highlighted, but also to pay attention to the specific details. It is then that the employee agrees to meet halfway with the client's amendments to their ideas, subject to conditions, for example, the cost of production, managing in the time given, and finally, the deadline by which the work needs to be produced. Many opportunities can arise from handling a brief. These can include obtaining new skills, such as proofreading, and the ability to negotiate with many different clients, which in turn can lead to making new contacts and possibly obtaining more work within the media industry in the future. I hope you've enjoyed my video essay on adverts.